Hey, good morning, Internet, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 6th edition of Pearls of Wisdom. First day of school for us here, at least here at Western, and for most of our students north of the border up here in Canada. So we are active. We've got a pile of fresh new physio faces wandering around the building, everyone getting excited about what the future holds for them, and it is one of my favorite days of the year, hands down. I love to meet the new incoming crop of students. I like to look at them as though they are future colleagues rather than students, and I am usually get highly excited about what the future means when I see the caliber of students that come into our programs and programs across the country. So let me first say welcome to the new students entering, whether it's their physio degree or frankly any degree, or welcome back to any elementary or high school students. Make the best of the coming year. School is about what you put in, and it will certainly return something for you, something of value. Clearly, I like school. I've been here for many years. So welcome, and let's get on with it. With the introduction of the new school year, I've gotten to thinking about clinical placements, and this is something that our students always look forward to. They find an immense amount of value out of. A full third of our program here at Western, at least, is spent out in clinical placement, and I have the opportunity, as part of my teaching load, to see these students at the end of their second last clinical placement. So my primary teaching within our MPT program is in what's called our professional consolidation course, which is the last course of the last term of the last year. And as part of that course, my goal or my job there is to sort of facilitate the transition from student to independent practitioner. And so we do a number of different activities. We spend a lot of time in self-reflection, figuring out sort of where you are, who you are now, who you want to become. But because their most recent clinical placements are so fresh in their mind, one of the things I really like to do is get them thinking about what type of clinical instructor they're going to want to be when it comes time for them to mentor students underneath them. And of course, part of that, or a big part of that, perhaps all of it, is colored by their recent experiences as students underneath a clinical mentor or a clinical instructor. This past year, and for the past couple of years, I've done this exercise where I've had them break into groups, and they've gone through a process which is sort of like a nominal group question or nominal group technique for people who are familiar with that, where I give them a question, I have them work in groups of 3 to 4, and they write down as many qualities of a good quality clinical instructor that they can think of. We then do something called a post-it parade, which is where they take these qualities, they put them onto sticky post-it notes, go up to a big blank wall we've got in the classroom, and the first group goes along and puts their different qualities up on the wall. The second group comes, and if they've got the same quality as the first group had, they put another note right underneath that first one, or if they've thought of a quality that the first group hadn't, they start a new column. And in doing so, we get this sort of real-time kind of thematic analysis happening of the different qualities that they like to see in a clinical instructor. I thought I'd share those with you. This isn't a formal research study or anything like that, so it's never going to see the light of day unless I share it through a medium such as a vlog. So some of you will have already seen, looked around the circles outside my image here, and you will have seen some of the qualities they came up with. I'm just going to resize my video so that we can see them all. Get my big ugly mug out of the way. There we are. We've got 13 different qualities that the group came up with this year, and you may argue that these aren't all necessarily unique. Perhaps I could collapse one or two of these. But frankly, I look around and I think, it is not an easy job to be a good clinical instructor. If we start from the top and move clockwise here, they like clinical instructors who are supportive and encouraging, who model professionalism. Now, I have to make a quick comment about this because I had to ask them about this. It bothers me. It's a bit unfortunate to hear some of the stories here where some of the students had clinical instructors who they believe really lacked professionalism, were perhaps rude, were kind of talking down about the student in interprofessional meetings, talk about their time on the weekends or in the evenings, doing things that I guess maybe some of the students had issues with. So just one of those things. I mean, I guess at some point being a physio ends and being a real human begins, but I think understanding professionalism as long as you're in the role of the physical therapist is really important. Lots of it on feedback, provides effective and timely feedback, and any of you who have looked into feedback and best practices in providing feedback will recognize that different people like feedback in different ways. Some like it immediately, some like it delayed, some like sort of there's formative feedback, summative feedback. And so when I read this, I sort of read between the lines, and I think it has a lot to do with setting expectations clearly and early about how the student likes to receive feedback, recognizing that everybody's different. They may not jive with your own preferences for receiving feedback, but trying to adapt to what the student wants can only be helpful. Is patient and forgiving. I guess this only goes so far, of course, but I think we can all accept that students will make mistakes from time to time. Respects students' knowledge and competencies. It's interesting to hear that a number of the students felt that what they were bringing to the table wasn't really being recognized or respected, and frankly, these students are quite up to date for the most part. They've worked their tail off over the past couple of years, and so respecting that seems to be of value. Demonstrates passion for both the profession of physical therapy as well as passion for teaching. I don't think any student wants to feel like they're just with somebody who's going through the motions. That if you're not ready to take on a student, if you don't really feel into it, perhaps this isn't the right time to do it. And listen, we all respect that there are other things that go on outside of work that may sort of steal some of your passion. But again, maybe if you're not in that position or not in that place, either let the student just know that, there's other things going on, and I think you're doing a great job. You'll just, maybe not see it reflected in me from time to time, or maybe now's not the right time to take a student. Good communication. Amazing how much overlap there is here between good clinical instructor and what makes a good physical therapist. And for those who haven't seen that, you can take a look at the website. I recently wrote a blog on that based on some thematic analyses we've done of clinicians recently. Communication is such a massive field. I mean, what makes a good communicator in one context makes a poor communicator in another context. So it's hard to sort of be a good communicator all the time, but I think what they're really saying here is at least asks about the students' preferred modes of communication and does their best to try and adapt to that. Someone who kind of gets to the point, for example, is clear in the words they use, makes sure that the student has heard and understood, asks the student to reflect back to them what they just said, that sort of thing. Sets appropriate expectations and clear goals. So recognizing again that these are students. One of the worst things that can happen, frankly, in any interpersonal relationship is unmet expectations. But of course, if the student never knows that you've got that expectation, then how can they be expected to meet it? So making clear that you are making your expectations clear, and then also making it clear how you will know if they've met those expectations. So what are the goals? What are the expected outputs? Frankly, having those kinds of conversations early, in my experience, can save a lot of grief down the road. Is clinically skilled. Students want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing, who keeps up to date with new research, who keeps their skills sharp, that sort of thing. Makes complete sense to me. Is humble and self-aware? Why not? We as clinical instructors don't have to be the experts all the time. Frankly, I as an academic don't always have to be the expert in the room. It's okay to be humble and to recognize your own weaknesses, and frankly, sometimes I'm thinking, going back to respecting student knowledge and competencies, wow, it's a nice dynamic if sometimes you can ask the student for their thoughts and feelings about the current situation. Recognize your own limitations, I think, is what they're getting at here. I've already mentioned a couple of times, be adaptable and flexible, whether that's in communication style, whether that's in providing feedback, whether that's in setting expectations, and just kind of rolling with the punches, I guess. Again, that can be hard, especially for some of us who are sort of set in our ways, and I tend to be a bit guilty of that. But doing your best to sometimes, this kind of goes back to being humble and self-aware, reflect on some of the communications you've had with the students, for example, or reflect on some of the experiences you had earlier in the day, and see if maybe you can come up with a way to adapt so that if it didn't go very well with that student, if that interaction wasn't very good, it could be partly on them, it could be partly on you, and trying to find a common middle ground seems appropriate there. Is relatable. Frankly, the students want to know that you're not Superman or Superwoman all the time, that you are a real person, that you have a life outside of work, that you're just a good dude or a good person. That seems to really kind of give them some comfort and allows them to be a bit more real themselves. And many of you will know that being real, being genuine, is an important part of good clinical interactions. And then here's empathy one more time. I see empathic coming up, and I say one more time because it also shows up very strongly in our what is it to be a good clinician or a good physiotherapist is being empathic. So different from sympathy, of course, is empathy, which is really trying to understand the point of view of the other person. So there you go. There's the 13 domains that this year's group came up with for what makes a good clinical instructor. For those of you who are perhaps preparing to be a clinical instructor, maybe for the first time even, not a bad idea to go and review some of those and to come up with ways that you can nurture some of those own qualities in yourself. I think it can only help. All right. Have a great day.